everybody. Thank you and welcome to our next workshop, which is What is Git and GitHub with Tiffany Tabourne. So we hope that you're having a spectacular time so far. And for you, for this next hour, we have an amazing presenter, Tiffany, to talk to you about the fundamentals of version control, how Git is related to it, and what GitHub is and why we use it. We ask that you will hold all of your questions until the end because we will have 15 minutes where you can ask Tiffany anything you want. So Tiffany earned her bachelor's degree in computer science in May of 2021 from UTSA, and now she works as an associate software engineer and has expertise in software engineering and data science. So please go ahead and give a warm welcome to Tiffany.
Hey guys, welcome to Git and the intro to Git and GitHub. I am excited to be here to show you guys what Git and GitHub is. So, before we talk about Git and GitHub, first let's talk about version control. So, what is version control? Version control is a tool that allows you to control the version and history of your project. So if anybody has seen the TV series, Loki TV series, it's kind of like a timeline or kind of like a line that has a bunch of potential like deviations from it or nexus events that could be referred to branches having to do with Git and GitHub. But essentially, version control is just the ability to be able to have a history of all of your different versions and additions to a project or even something as simple as a text file that you have. So as a little demo I have for you, Google Docs actually has its own version of version control. So let's see here. All right, so this is just a simple document, and you see how I have multiple edits here. So let me go ahead and add another one. So if you go to File here and go to Version History, you can see that there is a record of all the different versions that and additions to this text file. So if you go to if I click on the first one, it's actually just the empty document. So this is cool because you can see like there's nothing here yet. This is just the first me creating the document. But then if you keep clicking, you notice that slowly there's more and more additions to the text. So this is a form of version control. It allows you to be able to go back in Google Docs and go back to a previous version of the document. So yeah, I hope that was helpful as a little visual. All right, so how does Git and GitHub relate to that? So Git is a tool that is a version control tool that can be used in the command line. So it is one of the most one of the most popular and open source version controls tools out there. It comes with a lot of really great commands to manage your projects on your local machine. So this would be through your command line interface, and it's also compatible with a lot of different operating systems. So if you have a Mac, it works on there, Windows, Linux, just so many options there. It also allows you to distribute and have different versions of your local code. So just like we saw in the doc, it works similar on your machine. This tool allows you to manage that stuff and go back and look at your history and go back and look at certain versions of your project. So how do you use Git? Well, you have to download this tool. So if you go to github.io, git-scm.com. So the full version of this tool is called Git-SCM. So if you go to that website, you can download the tool. And then once you download it, you can go into an empty project or a project that already has programming files or files in it. And you can initialize a repository, which is just the word for your project and your directory of code. So now that project or that file on your computer is now a repository that has the Git tool added to it. So now you are now able to manage your code in that directory. So here's just a few basic commands. It's okay if you don't know what these are, but basically in your command line, you can enter git and then a certain command that does a variety of things. So if in Google Doc I decided I wanted to go back to the first edit of my document, you can do something similar to that. And like one of those commands will help you do that. There's also commands that help you manage your remote repository, which is how GitHub is related, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah, so after you download this tool, you can use your command line interface to use Git. So in Macs, you can just use the terminal app on your computer. On Windows, there is a terminal called Git Bash, and that should be downloadable with the Git downloading Git. So it will come with that. So now GitHub. What is GitHub? So GitHub is a website, and it's a cloud-based service, and it helps developers manage their projects and their code, and just like we saw in the Google Doc, track and control the changes of the code. So you have your Git tool that's in your local repository, local project on your computer, but GitHub allows you to put your project onto the site through a profile that you can create. And then other people can also copy your project, or it's referred to as cloning. So you can clone other people's projects. People can clone your projects, and you can put it on your machine and edit it yourself and add changes to it yourself. So just to compare Git versus GitHub, so Git is a tool that was developed in 2005. It is separate from the cloud-based tool or collaboration functionality, where people can grab your projects and you can post stuff and people can copy it and stuff like that. It's I would think about it as like it's something that the Git is like you can manage your own projects like on your own computer and your own machine. So it's installed and the cool thing about Git is that just like I had mentioned with the Loki series and the Nexus events and the timeline thing, there are these things called branches. So let's say you have like your current version of your project, you can create another version. So now that like main version is split into two. So let's say this was the main version, and another one can be created, and then like those versions can both be changed. So let's say you want to focus on one feature or a specific addition to something, you can create these different branches that allow you to have different versions of your code and different edits of your code. And then comparing that to GitHub, so it's hosting these repositories and projects on the cloud. And you can share your code with others and make revisions or edits to other people's code or a shared project. So let's say you have an assignment for class and there's 4 people working on the same project. GitHub would be a really useful tool to be able to share the same project and make edits to it together. Yeah, so now, like, how can we use this for CodeQuantum? Well, you guys don't have to walk through this right now, but I'll just show you guys a little demo of how to kind of walk through using Git and how to create a new repository on your local machine, and then pushing that repository to GitHub. Gonna leave this up so you guys can see it. And then I'm going to pull up a terminal. So I have a Mac. So this is going to be the native terminal for MacBook that I have pulled up here. And so, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new repo. So in order to do that, let's just create a directory. So I'm going to call it my first project. We're going to go into that project. So now you see there's nothing in here yet. So now we're going to do a little git init, and that's going to initialize git into this folder. So now we have a Git repository. And if we look here, there's a file called .git, which is basically helping manage all the stuff, or it's actually a directory. So it's a folder that's basically keeping all your history for your project and keeping that information about your project in different versions and stuff. So yeah, so now we have a Git repository. Let's see, we can add a README file. Oh, okay. We're just going to actually create it into the repository. So now we have our README file, and that .git is still in here. So if we wanted to go ahead and add all of our changes, so to our repository, then we're going to do git add. So now that's just going to add all the changes and make sure that they're saved onto a specific version of the project. Just like we saw in Google Docs, there were, I think, 4 or 5 different tabs, and each of those tabs that I clicked on in the version control showed a different version of the project with less or more text, depending on how far I went back or how forward I went back. So this is doing that, but there are actually 2 steps in creating one of those, and you have to do that yourself. Whereas in Google Docs, it kind of automatically does that for you each time you type something, or like a new line. It will add the timestamp that you typed that and save that information for you. But in here, you actually have to do that for yourself. So git add is going to add the files and any of the changes that are in those files, so that it registered that they're added. So now another thing that is helpful to keep track of your history and how things are being changed in your project is adding a commit message. So a commit message is adding some sort of short blurb of information that tells you, future you, why this change was made or what was changed in the code or the text file or whatever you're editing in here. But also, if you have multiple people working on the same project and you're using GitHub too, then you're going to want to see, oh, why was this changed? Like, was there an error that's being fixed here? Or was there some sort of new feature being added or a new class that's being added to the code files? So a typical first commit message is first commit. So you can now, like, every code file that's being added is going to have this commit message to signify that So your first commit. So now we have committed that, and now that's a saved version, and it has a commit message attached to it. So in order to use this with GitHub, because remember, we're still using Git, and this repository is only on our local machine. So we don't have a cloud version of this. Like, nobody can clone this yet and start working on it themselves yet. So we're going to have to do a little work for that as well. And so how we do that is we can go ahead and add, we're going to have to go ahead and create a repo in GitHub. So we go to GitHub. And we can create a new repository. So this is, actually, before I show you that, it's going to give you a little quick tour for those who haven't played around in here too much. So I'm logged in on my profile. I can go to my profile here. It has a cool thing where you can see where you've made contributions before, and you can just look at your activity. You can be added to organizations, which allow you to have certain privileges for what repos you can clone and stuff. And so here on the second tab, you can see there's a repositories section. And so these are remote repositories that are similar to ones that you can create locally, but this is the cloud version of that. So we can go ahead and add a new repository. Add a little description here if you want to. And you can also choose to make it public. So public means that anyone can clone your repo or basically copy it and edit it on their own. And then private, you can choose and give authorization to who can do what with your repo. But private basically hides it from your profile, so no one can see it if they're just going on your profile. We already have a README, so we don't need to add that. And so we're going to just go ahead and create the repo.
Hey, Tiffany, I had a question.
Yeah.
Someone asked, what if I'm not familiar with the terminal? Are there any other options?
Yeah, so I know that some IDEs have an option to basically, you can like click around and do the same functionalities, like add a like do git init and like git add and all these things. I'm not super familiar because I haven't used those before. And it is those tools are definitely useful. But I think it's okay if you're not familiar with the terminal. I would recommend trying it out and just going for it and learning how to use it. But yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on how you want to develop or make apps or use Git, because some people just don't want to use a terminal, and that's totally fine. So there are definitely UIs built around Git that you can use, or even like tools that you can add to an IDE that you can use. So, and I think actually GitHub might have their own desktop app that you can use as well. So I would look up GitHub desktop app, and I think there's a version of that where you can do the same things that you can do in the terminal, but with just with the UI on top. So yeah, but yeah, I would recommend trying out the terminal. Doesn't hurt to at least try it. So GitHub is also really helpful. They do have a lot of documentation. So if you go to GitHub and just look up GitHub docs, it will actually give you a lot of information for how to set stuff up, how to do something specific. And also even when setting up a project, you can see here it gives you a tutorial and just kind of shows you the steps that it takes to do this. So this is actually what we want to do here. We want to push an existing repository from the command line. So if we go to our terminal, I'll just, I think, under here. Yeah, right here. So if we go to the terminal, we can just follow these steps. So this Git command line, what it's doing is it's first, this part is the main command. So git remote is referring to anything having to do with maybe adding some settings or modifying the remote characteristics about your local repository. So right now, this is basically setting my local repository to be connected to the remote one. So how it's doing that is it's going to say, okay, we're doing something remote, so git remote, and then add origin. So origin is a kind of like adding a name or a label to the remote repository. So you could have multiple ones that are connected and label them with a different name. So origin is typically you have like one remote repository that's connected, but there are cases where you have multiple possibly. So we can just go ahead and copy and paste that in there. And so now we have my local repository connected to this URL that is my username. So because I'm the one that created the repository, it's within my profile, and then the remote repository github demo.git. So now we're establishing what the main branch is here. So the main branch is basically the version of your project that is meant to be the thing that, like if you're doing an assignment, for example, this is meant to be the thing that you're probably turning in, the version of your project that you're probably going to be turning in to your professor. So you can have a lot of branches coming off of your project, but the main one is kind of like that continuing front part of the project, and like should be ideally the most updated one. And then so that's just setting that as the main branch. And then we have the last command, so that's going to be pushing it up to the main branch. So now that we have our local repository connected to our remote one, and we've set to say, hey, this is the main branch right now. Everything that's currently in the project, the README file, that's the only thing that's there right now. But everything that's in the project is the most updated version of this project, and that's called main. So now we're going to push the project onto GitHub. So let me copy that. Okay, so now we have our project on GitHub. So if I refresh this page right here, now we can see that we have this README, the file we created about 9 minutes ago. So there's nothing in here, but I guess another thing to show you, if you're not editing it on your local machine, and there's something you have to tweak really quickly, you can always actually edit the file from GitHub. So you can just add your stuff, and so maybe for some of you guys, this word commit is familiar. So if you remember back when we were making our first commit, so basically saving our changes to our current version of the project, we use this word commit. So if you see here, we're doing the same thing, and we can even add a commit message. So the commit messages would go right here, just like we did over here. And then, yeah, we can, so here's something to note about the branches. So we can commit this directly to the branch. So once again, that would be like ideally the most updated version of the project when it's the thing that you'll be submitting to your professor. And then you could create a new branch. So let's say you had finished your project, whatever your coding assignment was, but there's some extra credit. So the extra credit could break your code, could break your assignment, and you don't want to just straight up edit your project and then mess it up, and then like maybe it's due tomorrow. So maybe you mess something up and then it's like, oh shoot, wait, I don't remember what the right way to write this function was or something. Instead of having to mess with your project that's done and like all the basic requirements are done, and you don't want to edit that, you can make a branch. So you can make a branch off of your main. So you can even do that here. So I could just name this like extra credit or something. So if I make a main branch, now you have almost like another copy of the project. So, and then you can edit and you can make your changes and like mess up your project in there, and not have to worry about it messing up the only copy of your project that you have, that you know works and you know you'll get 100 on, let's say. So yeah, so now I can add the changes. Now if we go back to the project, we can see here that we have two branches. So this is like your assignment that you're about to turn in that works perfectly well. And this is the extra credit that you just don't want to mess up your assignment so you can turn it in tomorrow. And yeah, so now we have, this is what we just made, the recent edit in the README. And so now you have these two branches. So if you decide, okay, well now it seems to be good, like the extra credit works, you can merge the two branches together, and that's another function that Git provides. So you can do both of these things on both like within Git and also in your local repo. However, because these are separate, so these are still separate, the edits don't automatically change. Like, so if you make a change in here, you have to update your local one. If you make a change in your local one, you have to you have to push the changes to here. So you definitely have to make sure you're keeping track of the two, like your local copy of your project and the one that's in the cloud, because if things get too far from like the most updated version, then that can cause problems. But just to show you a little more, so now that we've made this change in here, in order to now see these changes in your local one, because right now the only branch and the only version of the project that's in here is the empty README file, and only one branch. So if we do a git pull, that's pulling all the new stuff from GitHub. So if you see here, let's go back. So this is where we pull from. Okay, so here's git pull, right? So from remote, it's getting some data and it's adding them to your file here. And GitHub gives you some useful information here that says, oh, hey, look, there's a new branch. And it's called Tiffany, username extra credit. So yeah, so now we have all those changes, and now we have the 2 versions of the assignment in the repo. So yeah, the purpose of this today was mostly to give you guys an understanding of version control and what Git is and how GitHub fits into that. I hope you enjoyed this. As an intro, I shared some resources with Janelle, so some links, some interactive ways to learn Git. And so if you guys are interested in learning more commands, feel free to use those resources, and also a visual explanation of how to use Git. So it shows pictures with how Git works and how the history works and the web of all the history works on there. So feel free to use those resources. And I'm open to take questions. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. We'll wait for a couple more minutes since you did finish a bit early. That's all right, though. Leaves plenty of time for questions if people want to come in here. But if you have any questions, we'll stay silent for a little bit. Let people type fast in chat. Yeah. Version control is always important. You'll learn it everywhere in your developer life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Important tool to know. Yeah. I want to thank you again for coming, Tiffany. I know we've had you a couple times this year, and I appreciate you for coming out to CodeQuantum. So,
yeah, honestly, it's a privilege to be here and be able to hang out with you guys and teach stuff.
Yeah, you help pave the way for the next ACMW officers too. So things like this wouldn't happen.
I'm glad.
Let's see. Double check some text for myself. Got some thank yous in chat.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be here.
Well, I want to ask you here: is there anywhere anybody could reach out to you, or connect with you if they're looking for you, or totally up to you?
Yeah, you can. I have a LinkedIn, so if you look, you guys should be able to see my full name, Tiffany Tabourne. Look on LinkedIn and feel free to connect with me on there. I have an Instagram that's tiffany.tabourne. So if you guys want to reach out on there, feel free to. Those are the only 2 social medias I actually use. So, but yeah, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. Getting a lot of really great presentations and some thank yous. So good to see. I also posted the sign-in link for y'all again. That's the last time it'll be posted. Make sure you sign in before the event if the hour is up. But if there's no more questions, I think we're good. Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Yeah, of course. Have a great rest of your hackathon.
We will. I'm excited to see everyone's projects. And this is a great start to get everybody submitted on dev posts. So
awesome. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to go ahead and end it off now. Let's promote the next workshop that's coming up with Janelle. She's going to be talking about how to build an application in Java. She'll be going over JavaFX and Eclipse and all kinds of stuff too. So if y'all have questions, definitely ask there. It'll be ready to go. But other than that, thank you everyone for coming to Intro to Git.